used a company called Dog Trainers, but you don't have to use a company. You can also do it yourself. It is a lot cheaper if you do it yourself.
So I've broken down the steps into 2 stages. First, what you've got to do in India, and second, what you've got to do in Singapore. When you're in India, you just, first of all, step 1, make sure you microchip your dog with a good vet in India. Step 2, give the dog a rabies vaccine. Step 3, after giving the dog the rabies vaccine, wait for 30 days and then tell the vet that you want them to draw serum, not whole blood, of approximately 2 milliliters, and then send that serum to an approved lab for testing. The Australian government has a list of labs that they like on their website, so you can just choose one of those. So once you've sent that lab the serum for testing, step 4, get the test results back. Step 5, if your test results successful, you'll be able to go online and begin the application for the Australian government import permit. And you just have to go on the Department of Agriculture website and use that test result, and that's sort of like a partial application, and then after that you'll do the rest of the application later on. Step 6. Essentially, by this stage, you should be feeling pretty confident because you've already got a successful rabies test. So you can just go ahead and essentially buy the crate. So that's the crate that the dog's going to travel in when they're on the airline. And there's quite a few different requirements for that, and you can pretty much just research that online, and it's very easy to find, especially if you're looking for smaller dogs. I had a bit of trouble because Ruby is slightly larger, so I had to get a 48-inch crate. But for smaller dogs, it's really easy, and you can get them very cheap secondhand. However, if you want to buy a brand new one, they're pretty expensive. So the best brand which I found for crates is PetMate, but you can pretty much use any brand as long as the crate's secure. Step 7. I'd also recommend desexing, that is spaying or neutering your dog to make things smoother. Step 8. After the successful teeter test for rabies, to prepare the dog for entry into Singapore, you need to give the following vaccines: canine distemper, canine hepatitis, canine parvoviral infection. Step 9. Submit and get approval from Singapore for the import permit and quarantine space about 2 months before you plan to have your dog enter Singapore. Singapore is a pretty small country, so they might require you to apply for a dog license to keep the dog in public housing. If you keep the dog in a boarding kennel or you hire a pet transport company for this part, it is a little bit easier. I recommend using PetMC. They were pretty professional when I used them for Ruby. Step 10. Book the dog's flight from India to Singapore. About a week before your dog's flight date, treat the dog for internal and external parasites. Have your vet fill out all the paperwork at this time. I used Thai Airways, but I believe there are some other airlines which are pretty good. Step 11. Approach the Indian Animal Quarantine and Certification Service and have them fill out the paperwork that Singapore needs. So this is the official government vet, and they just have to certify your private vet and make sure that they fill it out. Step 12. Check your dog into the flight on the day of departure. Here's a short video of Ruby traveling to the airport in India. She had to be taken by road from Kerala to Bangalore, and then she flew out from Bangalore. Step 13. Once the dog reaches Singapore, they will put the dog immediately into quarantine. That's going to be for 30 days. Ask your friends and family to visit and check up on your dog on this time. You can also get various vaccines and tests started during quarantine since visiting is allowed. Here's a quick video of Ruby chilling out in Singapore, just having a good time after landing.
Good girl, good girl.
One of the things you might want to do is step 14. Well, actually, you have to do it. Step 14 is basically you've got to take another blood sample, send that blood sample to another lab as approved by the Australian government. And just like you did when the dog was in India, make sure it's a serum sample, not whole blood. Get it tested, get the test results back, make sure the test results are successful. And then you can use that as part of the final import process for Australia. Just attach the documentation along with your application. Step 15. Here are some vaccines I recommend doing to make things smoother. Leptospira, interrogans, Cerevar, Canicola, canine influenza, which is mandatory, and Bordetella bronchoseptica, aka kennel cough. Step 16. Once all the paperwork's done, book your dog's travel from Singapore to Australia, finalize the import permit with Australia, and book the quarantine space in Melbourne. As usual, step 17, you'll need to get your vet to apply flea and tick treatments a little bit closer to the travel date, approximately 1 week beforehand. I think it's 2 to 7 days beforehand. That's just the final step. And we've got to obviously stamp the import permit. There's got to be a lot of paperwork proving that all these things have been done from the vet, as well as from the official government vet in Singapore. Step 18. Checking your dog to the airline on the day of departure as manifest cargo. Make sure to give them a long walk beforehand and plenty of time to pee. Step 19. Pick up your dog upon the release from 10 days of quarantine in Melbourne. So this is after arrival. The dog is going to be taken straight away to quarantine, and you are not allowed to visit your dog in Australian quarantine.
Dog trainers. Australia. She's trying to figure out what's going on.
Sorry, darling, not just Jen.
She's got to be trained actually. What happened is she's 4 years old.
Yeah,
And
she's still very young.
What happened is she was not trained at all in
Yeah.
India. So my son liked her. Not to do this. So I just wanted to bring her.
Congratulations, you now know how to bring your dog from India to Australia via Singapore. I have skimmed over a few steps, so you really do need to print out the detailed step-by-step instructions from the official government websites of Singapore and Australia. Alternatively, you could just take the easy way out like I did and pay a pet transport company. I hope some of what I've said helps, and I hope that if you like this video, subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends.